Guys, have you noticed all these YouTube viral videos that push you to quit your 9 to 5, start your own business, or even become a full-time content creator? And as an ex-entrepreneur and blogger who quit her great career just to start a business, I want to share what you would actually experience once you decide to hand in your notice, quit your 9 to 5, and become an entrepreneur. I will talk about things that people on YouTube hardly ever talk about. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Katia, I live in Paris, and this is the channel about figuring out adult life. I talk a lot about careers, professional development, and also share the fun side of my life. I do some travel vlogs, for example. So let's dive into this video. First of all, I will very briefly share my personal background, and I'll talk about the event which pushed me to become an entrepreneur and how did I ended up building my own company. And I will talk about the rise and fall of my business, and I would like to share with you top 3 major challenges that I faced, so that in case you decide to go for entrepreneurship, you are kind of prepared. In the end, I'll share my advice to those who are considering entrepreneurship, and I will talk a little bit if I would like to become an entrepreneur one day, once again. In a nutshell, I had a successful career for over a decade. For some reason that I still haven't figured out, I was very afraid to fall behind my peers, so I started working very early. At 18, I was already working in a couple of local companies, and at the age of 20, I had my first big internship. It was at Ford Motor Company, and this internship was followed by more work in British American Tobacco, in Carlsberg Group, and Nokian Tires. At the age of 22, I won a scholarship and went to study for my master's degree to one of the most prestigious European business schools, Bocconi University. So that was the time when I moved from Russia to Italy. And my next stop was Denmark, where I did my double degree with Copenhagen Business School. After getting my European diplomas, my career accelerated rapidly. So I first joined Mars for a leadership development program and stayed there for 4 years. After Mars, I moved to the most prestigious management consulting firm in the world, McKinsey, where I stayed for another 3 years. What's important to note here is that I truly loved my job. Of course, I got tired sometimes, obviously, but in the bigger scheme of things, I was very fulfilled and I really enjoyed what I was doing. When you watch these viral videos of the ones that I was talking about in the beginning of the video, you might notice that people sharing their experience of becoming entrepreneurs, they felt really miserable at their work, so they didn't like their work. That was definitely not my case. And second, I have never dreamt to become an entrepreneur. Why I decided to start a business then? There was a situation in my life which pushed me to think about starting my own company. It was in 2019 when I got married to my colleague from McKinsey, and we both got transferred to Paris office. At that time, I decided to take a sabbatical leave for a couple of months in order to study French and to do all the paperwork. So basically, I needed to do a residence permit and a work permit. And French bureaucracy, French authorities not issuing my work permit and me not being able to start my corporate job gave me some time to think about my life and what else I like to do in my life except for my corporate career. And I realized that I feel super fulfilled and I absolutely love mentoring people who are in the very beginning of their career, who are deciding where to do an internship, how to go abroad to study, how to get a scholarship. So they are kind of thinking about their future, about their professional future. And I've been mentoring such people for my entire life once I got my scholarship and once I got my first serious job. But at that specific moment in Paris, I decided that it was the great time to start doing this at scale. And this is exactly how my company called Art of Career was born. It was based on my passion for careers, for education, and my passion to share this experience with people and help them to build stellar careers or go abroad and get their scholarships. For 3 years, we served more than 2,500 clients. And we also managed to build a network of more than 70,000 people who were following us on YouTube, Instagram and Telegram, the Russian messenger and social network. I built it all from scratch with zero external money. I didn't burn any investor cash or something. And it was entirely self-funded and built from zero. But most importantly for me, this business had a real impact on people's lives. It was a successful business until it wasn't. I will tell you later in this video what exactly happened to my company. And while all this journey was super exciting, there were some things that I learned the hard way. I will share 3 major challenges that I faced as an entrepreneur, and I will rate them on a scale from 0 to 10. Let's start. Number 1, fighting constant FOMO, fear of missing out, and actually experiencing huge opportunity costs. 9 out of 10. As I shared with you before, I decided to switch from management consulting to entrepreneurship, and that was a very bold move. And let's be honest here, everyone, including myself, are comparing themselves to people from his or her, their reference group. And my reference group were people with whom I worked at McKinsey. And I saw these people building absolutely amazing careers, either within a firm, like growing rapidly, or outside the firm when they were hired for tons of money for top positions within industries. And of course, I clearly understood that I could have been one of them. But I deliberately chosen another path. And that was okay until my business was growing. And it turned out to be not okay when my business started to fall apart. Not only I considered it as my personal failure, I also understood that I wasted precious time to build career, and this gap is really hard to close. On a separate note, I want to highlight that becoming a content creator and building a blog and doing a YouTube channel was a super unconventional path for a next management consultant. And remember, I did that back in 2019, before it was cool, so there were not so many expert blogs on YouTube or on Instagram. My colleagues from McKinsey were quite surprised when they saw my content, and I know that they've been discussing a lot behind my back about what I'm doing with my life. That was not nice at that moment. Anyways, I'm super lucky that actually it turned out that I didn't lost this time, even though my business failed eventually. After I closed my business, I landed a great role. And the funny fact is that this entrepreneurship experience was a big plus, a big advantage for my line manager, who was considering different candidates from big 3 companies. And my entrepreneurship experience helped me to stand out from competition, basically. I'm currently working as a global strategy manager in a huge CPG company. By the way, if you are interested how I landed a great 6-figure job in Paris, I will link another video here or here, I always forgot which side is it, where I share my experience and I share a lot of tips and tricks on how to land a great job in Europe. In Paris, I did it without fluent French, which is important and quite rare. If you find this video insightful so far, please hit the like button. That will immensely help me to grow my channel and to reach more audience with my educational content. Thanks in advance, and maybe even consider subscribing. Okay, back to other pain points that I had as an entrepreneur. The second one, oh my god, this is huge. Building a high-performing team when you are a startup. Oh my god, this is 10 out of 10. That's insane. So when you start a business, you start doing everything by yourself. But you quickly realize that it limits your growth because you don't have all the competences and you don't have more than 24 hours in a day. So you need to get some help. And even if you decided to be a solopreneur, not build a huge company or a tech startup or something, you still need people to whom you will be outsourcing some tasks, and moving from being hands-on in every aspect of your business and doing everything on your own to delegating and to truly trusting your team. That's a big path and it's a challenge in itself. And believe me, these fears are not unfounded. Finding right people, hiring them, recruiting them, and keeping them motivated turned out to be by far the most difficult thing that I experienced in my entrepreneurship journey. I remember when my husband once told me when I was struggling with this hiring process, he was like, Katia, you know what? Delivering exceptional results and delivering great projects is super easy at McKinsey because you have top talent available for you when you're a manager, for example, and you need to deliver a project. But it's super hard to deliver the same exceptional quality and results when you have limited budgets and you don't have a bunch of people waiting in the line to join your company. I started my business with several people, students at that time, whom I needed to teach all the basics. They helped me a lot in the beginning, and I'm super grateful to each of them. But on the other hand, we had different experiences. We had situations where we wasted big ad budgets, big for startup, advertising budgets, because we didn't have a proper skill set to actually estimate if this channel will get us potential clients or not. And at some point, when the revenue of my company went up, I was able to hire more people and more professional people. So I hired great professionals from operations, marketing, sales, and that really helped me to scale my business and to grow it even further and faster. And honestly, I wish I've done that earlier. And another team-related challenge which I faced at that time was also super not obvious when I just started out. That was building a proper working culture in my startup. I'd like to quote Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix, on his idea about building a corporate culture. We model ourselves on a professional sports team, not a family. Families are about unconditional love. Professional sports teams, on the other hand, focus on performance and picking up the right person for every position. And one more thing, it is especially hard for a startup because in almost every case, the players you start with are not the same players you finish with. And that sounds really logical, right? You hire best people that are available to you to do the job, the right job for them. And if people do not perform, you give them second chance, you try to coach them, give them feedback, and if this does not help, you basically let them go. For me personally, it turned out to be way easier said than done. Building a company from zero makes you to build these personal connections with people who were there for you when you just started out. It's really hard to break those connections, and especially if you are a person with a high degree of empathy. That's me. And one thing that I was absolutely terrible at is letting people go. I actually had to wait when people realized themselves that they are no longer fitting the position and they're no longer performing and coming to me and saying that they want to quit. And that was the easiest way for me to say goodbye. So I didn't do a great job on prioritizing performance over personal relationships which I had with those people. The sunset is really close. I think the sun is already gone. So sorry for the light. It will change. At some point, maybe I will end in total darkness. And last but not least, write on paper or digitally everything you agreed on with the person you're working with, either your partner, especially if it is a friend, or your employee. Everything like working hours, salary, KPIs, so all these things, because if they are talk through orally only, then it will be really hard to come back and revisit them. So that's my real advice, which I learned the hard way. And the third challenge which I faced, and the one that I want to discuss with you, is building boundaries and detaching yourself from your own business. And I will rate it as 8 out of 10, still pretty high. When I worked in my corporate job, that was relatively easy for me, say in 80% of the time, to switch off my laptop in the end of the day and switch my mind to my personal life and not think about my work after my working hours are finished. On the other hand, in a startup, you don't have working hours. Your brain just constantly working 24/7. You cannot switch it off. And yeah, on a serious note, it's close to impossible to being 100% mindful and switch off your brain, especially when you're just starting out, and especially if you have a team and you have a responsibility to pay salaries and responsibility in front of the team, and also responsibility towards your clients, no matter what, because your reputation is on stake. And in addition to this, you start to associate yourself with your business. So your personal success is defined by the success of your company. This is something that I experienced. And failure of your company can be considered as a personal failure. On top of everything, if your main marketing channel is social media, for example, YouTube or Instagram, and your revenues depend on whether or not you are creating content, this can lead to burnout very quickly because you cannot switch off. In my business, I was heavily dependent on Instagram sales. So I had to be present, I had to be online in one sort of or another almost every day. And the worst part was when I went on vacation, I saw everything around me as a potential content. And when I was talking to my friends or my husband, I was like creating those stories that I could share later on my Instagram, like based on situations which people shared with me. Of course, I did not talk about anything confidential or private, but still you kind of like grasping like here and there, okay, I can talk about that, I can talk about that. And that's not fun, guys. Let's be clear. And my personal key takeaway here is that when you start your company and when you start your channel, you actually need to brainwash yourself that taking a proper rest, not just a like going somewhere but still thinking about the business, but like properly switching off is absolutely necessary to be in the game in the long run. Because business is a marathon, it's not a sprint. You need to stay sane, you need to stay active, and your brain needs to stay fresh. That's super important. I learned it the hard way. I was burned out. In the middle of my journey, I once was like completely burned out and I couldn't work for about 2 months. And that was a huge lost revenues because I had a team who was there, but I could not create content. Thus, my revenues of my business went down and that created a total mess. But I couldn't do anything. I was totally burned out and incapable to do anything. And the last thing, which is also very important, as an entrepreneur, you need to create an emergency fund for your company, at least 3 months of all the salaries and all the necessary expenses for your company. This will dramatically decrease the pressure and the level of stress that you will be having. You don't want to experience that. So these were the top 3 challenges which I experienced as an entrepreneur, and as I noticed that no one on YouTube is talking about that, I felt like sharing them so that you are kind of prepared. But is the concept of building a business, is that bad? Is it that hard to do? Is it that stressful? Well, it is hard, but there are so many positive sides in it, of course. And no, for me, it was not the fact that you don't have to go to the office every day or the fact that you don't have a manager who tells you what to do. I don't have any problems with having a manager, to be honest. For me personally, this feeling of building something which is 100% yours, which is built based on your ideas, your decisions, your skills, your team, the team that you created, this is something precious. And watching your company to grow from the idea to a proper business, this is super motivating. It's something worth trying to do. So why did my business fail? My business failed because of a black swan event. So basically the black swan event was the war which happened between Russia and Ukraine. And I have to make a huge disclaimer here before I continue. My personal tragedy of losing a business is not remotely comparable with terrors of war and what people have actually experienced in Ukraine. So just sharing this context because this is important to understand that sometimes when you're building something and you're building it not in a vacuum, but you're building it in the environment. And when we go to business school and we study all those analysis which you need to do once you set up a business, for example, to evaluate a lot of risks, and geopolitical risks are a huge type of risk, an important risk, and that was exactly my case. The content of my courses and my mentors, they were all Russian speaking, and what happened is that Russian speaking clients could no longer go abroad. They could not take their exams, TOEFL, IELTS, they could not go abroad to study. A lot of scholarships were closed for them. And also at the same time, a lot of international companies left the market and there were no more job openings to pursue and internships and graduate programs. So basically the market for my services became tiny overnight. And I had to take a very hard decision. After 5 months of crisis management, I had to close the company. But that happened because of the external relevant, but also because of the choices that I made deliberately at some point, and because of the strategy that which I chosen. And there are a couple of things that I'd like you to take from this video. And the first one is that your 9 to 5 does not have to be boring, frustrating, and it could be super rewarding, it could be motivating, it could develop your skills, it could be very meaningful. I'm talking from my personal experience that like my current job is absolutely meaningful, and I'm so happy that I have it because I see that my values match the company values. That's just a great thing. 9 to 5 could be fulfilling. And if you hate your job, please, before quitting, take a step back and think about what exactly does not work for you. Is it your position? Is it the content? Is it the industry that you're working in? Is it the team? Think about what you can change in your 9 to 5 before saying goodbye to the entire concept of working 9 to 5 altogether. Step 1, be absolutely aware what's not working for you. And step 2, to create a plan for change. And quitting and saying goodbye to the entire 9 to 5 thing is an option, of course, and that would be a right choice for some people. But when you decide to do so, be mindful because you might have unrealistic expectations about entrepreneurship. Just wanted to share with you that entrepreneurship is not a walk in the park. Be ready, be prepared for that. You will feel lonely, you will feel lost, you will have to navigate uncertainty, you will feel frustrated when your team is not performing or you get negative feedback from your customer. I can go forever and I don't want to go in circles. Try not to romanticize entrepreneurship versus demonizing, do we have this word in English? You understood, like thinking that corporate career is terrible and you just need to quit it altogether very fast, as fast as possible. And if you decide to start a business, of course, go for it. I think there is a bigger chance that you might regret later if you haven't tried versus you tried and failed. By the way, if you have fears that you might fall behind in your corporate career if you decide to switch your career path to entrepreneurship, I invite you to watch my other video, which is called 21 Career Shortcuts, which will help you not to lose time, but actually become even more valuable person for a company for futures. And if you are in your corporate job now and you don't know how to grow, and that's why you are considering quitting everything altogether and becoming an entrepreneur, watch this video before you take this decision. You might find some ideas there on how to grow within your current company. And yeah, what am I doing now? You know, I'm back to my corporate career. How does it feel after entrepreneurship? Absolutely fine. I mean, both periods of time in my life were great, but I don't regret coming back to corporate life. Do I feel like starting another business in any time soon? Maybe. Never say never. All from my side for today, guys. If you like this video, please hit the like button and please subscribe to my channel. And let's meet in a week in a vlog or maybe in another sit-down video that I will be creating for you. Bye.